Well, good afternoon. This is sort of the second in a series, moving beyond first year and doing a little bit of exegetical observations of the Greek text here. Um, some important things to note here right off the bat is what we did. And what we did is we took the Greek text, we blew up the font so that it's bigger, and then we started to sort of make morphological distinctions. We know this is a nominative masculine singular here. We noted the supplied verb, that kind of thing. We identified some datives. We noted where the relative pronoun refers back to Gaius there. So the elder to Gaius, the beloved, whom I love in truth. Beloved, concerning all things I pray that you may be, you may prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. For I rejoiced greatly at the coming of brothers and their testimony of you to the truth. Could be an interesting discussion about their true testimony or something along those lines, or is it a testimony of how Gaius is in truth? Interesting stuff there. Even as you are walking in the truth, so that sort of clarifies it. Greater than this, I have no joy that I hear of my children in the truth walking. Really interesting how many times he says truth or truly or something along those lines. But now, once we've done some of this stuff, we've identified direct objects and we've talked about, parsing participles and infinitives and whatnot. Oh, this answers a question that came up in class. That's the difference between the genitive participle and the nominative masculine singular participle. The tense formative nu tau right there. This is the tense formative meno right there. So tense formative plus omega nu. If it's the nominative masculine singular, you'll just have the omega nu. I guess that's extra if you're not in that class. Okay, but this has all of a sudden, this is sort of a worksheet. It's gotten a little bit cluttered. So what I want to do now is sort of break things out a little bit. And so what we have here is sort of a clean slate, if you will. Still using a nice large font so we can manipulate things. This can get cluttered. One of the things I like to do when I'm working on the computer at this, I'll shrink it way down and use a large screen on the computer, and I'll zoom in on Microsoft Word or whatever, and that enables me to have almost an unlimited sheet of paper, which is fun. Okay, you'll notice here these double lines and this single line. The double line sets off what's sort of a major break in the author's thought. This right here, this is a heading. It's not a throwaway, but it is what the author is using to identify. Okay, this is the heading. This is what the letter format is. He's starting off talking about this is the elder, well, whoever he is, writes to Gaius, and we certainly believe the elder is John here. Truth. Another thing to notice here, there's just a lot of things to notice. Notice the kathos, probably a causal conjunction telling the cause for what's happening up here. You'll also notice, see this verb, a first person singular verb? What's this? A third person singular verb. So this is I, this is, oh, I'm sorry, my son, yeah, he, okay, or your soul. So there's an element of you here, even though it is third singular, it is talking about a he, it's the soul of you. So it's sort of like a you here. I, you. There's a distinction. John's talking, and he's identifying something in Gaius that he really appreciates. The same thing is going to happen here. I rejoiced. That's an I. And then what he's also going to do, it's the same kind of thing on this page, even as you are walking in the truth. Okay, so we have another I here, and then another you. So you can sort of see how John is framing his discussion or his opening. He's talking about something that, I pray for you, even as your soul prospers. Okay, what is his prayer? And then there's an even as, a causal sort of a thing. Because your soul is prospering, John is encouraged to pray for you. Even as you walk in the truth. Okay, another causal conjunction there. Whenever it comes to identifying causal conjunctions and stuff like that, what we're looking at and what we're doing is we're going through something like this, Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics, and you can see I've got mine sort of marked on the spine. You see the conjunctions tab. That just helps me open up two conjunctions, and then I'll go through in the conjunctions and I'll look for kathos. Let's see. Causal conjunctions right here. See if I can hit the zoom button or the focus button. Kathos. Okay. So these are all the different conjunctions that could be causal, and then Wallace will illustrate those. So that's a great resource, a lot of fun to get into. Even if we didn't have, Wallace and we're ignorant, we can still sort of pick out the kathos as it happens on the page here. So then we have another sort of minor distinction. Greater than this I have no joy. That, okay? This is the content. This is a content hina clause. What's John's greatest joy? Oh, that I hear my children walking in the truth. So truth, truth, truth. Repeated, 3 times in the space of 4 verses? Oh, 4 times in the space of 4 verses. So what's John's big concern? Well, it seems to be truth. So what kind of sermon could this work for? Well, okay, new piece of paper. When we move from text, when we start to think about the text, one of the ways to do it, and before we develop a sermon outline, is we start with, okay, what is the text about? Verse 1, John writes to Gaius. Verse 2, commendation and prayer. Okay, those are some big thoughts in 2 and 3. And then John's greatest joy in verse 4. From there, we could form something like a sermon outline. Now, again, or for the first time, or however you want to think about it, everybody's sermon is different, and every sermon outline is different. So this is just a hypothetical. The first thing that you should consider in developing a sermon is a main idea. And that main idea should be tightly tied to the main idea of the text. If the idea of your sermon has to bounce around all over the place in order to get the main point, you're really not preaching a text, in my humble and accurate opinion. So a truthful walk brings joy. Okay? Now specifically, if we wanted to get specific about the text, it's Gaius's truthful walk. Okay, but can we extrapolate from that and talk about believers here and now today, that they, as they walk in the truth, that brings joy? It's certainly not the only thing, and truth is sometimes difficult and hard, but this is one aspect. Perhaps if you have a sermon series on truth, this is one aspect of walking in the truth. When John writes to Gaius, okay, that's verse 1, he commends his truthful walk. That's verse 2 and 3. And then verse 4, that's a truthful walk brings joy. I want you to notice something that happens in the development of this, in the development of any sermon outline, and this is from Brian Chappell, who talks about anchor and magnet clauses, and it's very confusing, but the idea is that this truthful walk is repeated so that when your audience leaves the sermon, they remember at least one thing: truthful walk. They won't remember all of the details. They won't remember that a truthful walk brings joy to John, specifically seen in this text. Can we say that a truthful walk brings joy to the Lord? Maybe that's a logical extension. If John is pleased by a truthful walk, and John is one of the apostles, serious Christian dude, then his joy is also a reflection of what the Lord is happy with. What about to the community? As you develop 3 John, we see that there's Diotrephes who's not walking in the truth, and thus is not bringing joy to the community. He's bringing division and dissension. So there are always qualifications when you're dealing with a small portion of text. You have to think of this text in light of the entire text of 3 John, in light of the entire New Testament, in light of the entire Bible. So there are always qualifications. But the one thing you don't want to do is leave your sermon or create your sermon with so many qualifications that people don't know what the main point is. All right, there you go. Those are some exegetical thoughts. We've gone 10 minutes. I hope you guys have a great day.